gratitude to Chaitanya and Janisha for opening the doors of their beautiful home for all of us this evening. Hare Krishna. I believe this is the first satsang program in your house. Many in the building at first here. And the deities on the altar are very special to me. In 1989, when my mother and father first came to India, I spent about a week or so in Bombay and had major transformations in their lives at that time. In fact, my mother was dancing with Srinathji Prabhu's mother in the temple of Radha-Gopinath, quite ecstatically. And my father was dancing with all the brahmacharis during the kirtan. And from here we went to Jaipur, where we saw Radha Govinda Dev, Radha Gopinath, Radha Damodar. And then they wanted to see Taj Mahal, so somehow we went there. And on the way from Taj Mahal to Delhi, we left early morning. It happened to be my birthday, December 7th. And my parents, it was the first time they were with me in my birthday for probably 25 years. So they said they'd do anything for me. And I said, anything? They said, if it's humanly possible. So I said, on the way to Delhi, we're passing through a very holy place called Vrindavan. And we'll spend the whole day there. And all day, we'll chant Hare Krishna together. I'll clap my hands and you clap your hands and we'll chant together. So they said, yes, we will do. So we went to Vrindavan. It's very sweet. As soon as the car reached the limits of Braj Bhumi, I started the kirtan. Prabhupada's message, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They were chanting enthusiastically, really enthusiastic. And then we stopped the car, and we were going to go to Radha Damodar, Radha Raman temple first. And I remember I told my parents, leave your shoes in the car, because I was afraid somebody would steal their shoes, because they had nice shoes. So my father's first step out of the car was into a deep, warm, fresh pile of cow dung. His silk stockings were soaked with cow dung. And it was just sticking to him. A big pile of cow dung was sticking to his foot. And he was afraid to touch it. So we're walking, and he was really having culture shock. He said, what should I do now? And everybody knows what I told him. I said, cow dung is pure. You are becoming purified. And then we went to one of those hand pump wells, and I said, put your foot here. Anyways, we spent the whole day doing Harinam Kirtan, walking through the streets. We sat in front of Radha Raman for 1 hour, just chanting together. And toward the end of our journey, my mother and father said that we want to buy gifts for Srinathji's family and Krishna Chandra's family, because they were so good to us. What gifts should we get? And usually men don't know anything about gifts. My father said, I don't know. Let let Radhanath decide. And I said, well, what would you like to get them? And my mother said, deities, let's get them deities. So we went to Loy Bazaar, and we sat at Ganga Prasad Shamsundarlal place. He gave them all as gifts, saris and chadars and everything. And then they asked me to choose deities. So we got Krishna Balaram for Srinathji's family and Gaurnitai for Krishna Chanda's family. My parents paid for them as a gift. And Krishna Balaram is here in this home, Chaitanya. And Gaurnitai is in Krishna Chanda's house, and they're the presiding deities of Pune Yatra every year since. So these deities are very special. Tonight, so many wonderful guests from all parts of the world. I wish I had weeks to discuss the qualities of these people, but I'll speak very briefly. We have from Nigeria, Umesh and Aparna, wonderful friends, dear devotees. And today is Umesh's birthday. So let us wish him happy birthday by saying Hari Bol. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Our sincerest prayers for you. And Arjun, who is from Bombay, but from another planetary system in Bombay. Has become a dear best friend of Radha Gopinath's devotees. And we have from Malibu Beach, California, my dearest childhood friend who I grew up with and passed through inconceivable transitions in life. We grew up in a village north of Chicago. We traveled in California together, in the Bahamas together, in New York together. We traveled through Europe together. And later on, we even traveled in India together, as sadhus. I told the story last time in great detail. I think many of you have heard. But he is truly a dear, lifelong, loving friend. I'm so happy that you've come back to Bombay to visit with all of us. Let us welcome Gary back to Bombay. My father, one of the most precious joys in his life is that Gary and I are still friends. When we were young, he was always telling me, you know, why are you with this Gary? But now he loves Gary so dearly. He says to have a friend your whole life is such a precious gift of God. Although he is a physical trainer in the Malibu gym, he has a very deep and kind and spiritual heart. I'm very proud to have your company once again. Thank you. And we have Guru Das Prabhu, the first temple president of London, England, the first temple president of Vrindavan, District Mathura, UP, India. Delhi also temple president? First temple president of New Delhi. Guru Das Prabhu is history. Such an integral part of the history of all of our lives, because his sacrifice, his immense devotion is very much a part of the foundation that has made love of Krishna available to all of us. And there's so much we can say about Guru Das Prabhu. He's the one that took me by the hand and first put me right at the lotus feet of my Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, from a crowd of 25,000 people. Just picked me right up and pulled me to the stage, offered me to Srila Prabhupada. So I am forever indebted to Guru Das Prabhu, even though he stole my halava. But he gave me something better. He taught me from the onstart that if you want the higher taste, you have to give up the lower things. And it's never easy giving up the lower things until that interim period between giving up the lower things and before you get the higher taste takes faith and patience. So he taught me good lessons that I have strived to follow throughout my life. Let us welcome Guru Das Prabhu. And along with Guru Das Prabhu is Cindy. Wonderful, wonderful, blissful lady. She loves Krishna, she loves yoga, she loves devotees. And most of all, because she loves Guru Das, we love you. Let us welcome Cindy. Of course, we have Vishaka Prabhu, who's like the goddess of humility and dedication. One of Prabhupada's very intimate associates. Prabhupada's personal photographer. Srila Prabhupada gave so much dear affection and responsibilities to Vishaka Prabhu. And through the years, she has just remained so faithful, so absolutely exemplary in every possible way. She's a saint, really a saint. We're grateful she's here with her illustrious daughter, Adi Priya, who's the goddess of naughtiness. Sometimes, but very philosophical and very wonderful young lady. Let us welcome them also. And we have Sham Sundar Prabhu. He and Guru Das Prabhu, what they did together is they are legends in their own time. Together they started the first temple and second temple in the world of the Hare Krishna movement, San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury. They organized the mantra rock dance, biggest rock and roll bands of the West Coast. And Prabhupada was our Guru Maharaj was the top billing star of the show. The warm-up bands for Prabhupada were Grateful Dead, Moby Grape, Big Brother and the Holding Company, Jefferson Airplane, Quicksilver Messenger Service. Yes? Now, in India, this sounds like Sanskrit to an American. But if we're from the 60s of America, these names, they awaken unwanted seeds within the heart. Yes, Gary? Guru Das and Shamsun arranged all these bands to play for free, just to promote Krishna consciousness in Prabhupada. And this the star act was Srila Prabhupada came out and did kirtan and gave lecture. And they were putting strobe lights on him and everything. He was like 71 years old. Yes. And then Prabhupada had so much confidence, he sent them to London. And there they ended up living with John Lennon of the Beatles in his house for some months. He brought Prabhupada there. And George Harrison became a devotee then. They started the first temple in London. An amazing temple. Just a block or so away from the British Museum in downtown. Amazing place. And within a matter of months, it was overflowing with devotees. And Shyam Sundar was the one who, on Prabhupada's request, asked George Harrison to donate for Prabhupada's Krishna book. And later on he donated Bhaktivedanta Manor, which is the European headquarters for the Hare Krishna movement, donated by George Harrison. But Prabhupada, when he saw devotees were enthusiastic to serve, there was no complacency. He sent them from there to India to establish our society here. Together, they established the Cross Maidan program in Bombay. Guru Das Prabhu was first president of Delhi, first president of Vrindavan. He was living at Radha Damodar temple while the construction was going on. With Yamuna Prabhu. Well, one of the special features I want to focus on tonight is Prabhupada wanted to go to Russia. He wanted to break through the Iron Curtain in 1971, when the Cold War was at its peak. And no one could get Prabhupada a visa for Russia. But Prabhupada asked Shyam Sundar Prabhu, and within a day he had the visa. And Prabhupada took Shyam Sundar Prabhu and Aravinda, two devotees, to Russia with him. And the day they were leaving, Shyam Sundar Prabhu just asked some devotee if he could borrow a camera and have one roll of film in it, black and white. And some of the most famous photographs of Prabhupada's life are Prabhupada in Russia, in front of St. Basil Cathedral, is it? At the top, the Red Square, just outside of the Kremlin. Shyam Sundar Prabhu was right there with Prabhupada, breaking the ice of the Cold War. And it was Shyam Sundar Prabhu who was looking for some vegetables for Prabhupada one day and met one young Russian and one young Indian boy, and he preached to them and brought them to Prabhupada, and that Russian boy became a devotee. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu brought the first Bhagavad Gita into Russia. Gave it to that boy, and under communism, it was all outlawed. But it spread. It spread like anything, under tremendous persecution. Dr. Allah's phone? Huh? Sounds like a bhajan from Pandharpur. So tonight we are seeing some of the incredible fruits of that endeavor. We have, I believe, 27 devotees from Ukraine project in Ukraine is Achyuta Priya Prabhu. Now these devotees, what they went through, because years ago Ukraine was part of the communist regime under Russian control. Achyuta Priya Prabhu, they were hunting, the KGB was hunting for him and trying to catch him and put him in prison. But he was so intelligent that somehow or other he continued preaching, distributing books, having programs all underground, and never got caught. Amazing person. And one of the devotees who was here in Bombay with us, but he became sick today, so he didn't come this evening, is Amala Bhakta Prabhu. Very simple, loving devotee. And in his efforts to practice Krishna consciousness under communism, he was arrested. He was put in a prison camp. He was harassed. How many years? 2.5 years in prison. And they did not treat people nice in those prisons. They were just really downtrodden ghettos, hardly any heat. Where was he put? Siberia? Ukraine. He got tuberculosis in the prison. Other people in those prisons died. Some of the people put in those prisons, they were given injections to destroy their brains, so they couldn't think properly. Permanently destroy their brains. Yes, they were experimenting and giving injections. Babies, pregnant women, babies died, devotees died. To be a devotee in those countries at that time was not, as Thomas Paine said about the Revolutionary War. He said when America was fighting the Revolutionary War against Britain, he said, these are the times that try men's souls. It is not, if we want to win this war, none of us could be sunny weather patriots or fair weather soldiers. We have to be determined and willing to fight and willing to die for the cause. Otherwise, we lose. And in America, George Washington, who was the general, he took that speech of Thomas Paine and he promoted it like anything to give inspiration to people. Jesus said the same thing. Either be hot or cold, but if you're lukewarm, I spit you out. Hare Krishna. So these devotees, they had to be determined. Being a devotee in those days, in the communist countries, it wasn't a matter of just, socializing with Vaishnavas and liking to chant Hare Krishna with the devotees. You had to have such faith and determination that you were willing at any moment to be arrested, to be imprisoned, to be tortured, or even killed. And yet these devotees, like Achyuta Priya Prabhu, Amala Bhakta Prabhu, they did it. And because of their austerities, because of their love, they paved the way for something unbelievable. When communism crumbled, by that time, there were thousands and thousands of devotees. And a Hare Krishna explosion in those countries. How many centers are in Ukraine? Ukraine, there are 120 centers, more than India. It is a fact. Unbelievable what they're doing there. And how many devotees approximately? At least 4,000 devotees. And they're very enthusiastic. In Kiev, they just built a temple, and practically all the building materials of the temple, they went out and begged for the materials and got materials donated. Because Ukraine is a very poor country economically. Very simple. So we are so proud that 27 devotees from Ukraine are with us today. Let us very sincerely welcome them to our satsang this evening. And Achyuta Priya Prabhu, would you like to tell us the story of how Amala Bhakta was free from the prison? You know the story? Nancy Reagan. This was the time when Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States. I may interrupt you sometimes. No, you say.
Amala Bhakta Prabhu was in prison and his wife was there with 3 small kids in a village alone, and the smallest kid was like something like 1.5 years old, and she was left abandoned practically without
Could everyone hear?
any money.
You have to start over again.
Amala Bhakta Prabhu was...
Can you hear now? Amrita Devi? Huh? Put up the volume, please.
The screen.
Very loud.
This way?
Yes.
Amala Bhakta Prabhu was taken to prison by KGB, and his wife Kirtida Mataji was left with 3 kids, and youngest of these kids was 1.5 years old, and she was practically left in the village alone with these kids without any means to survive, practically. By that time, on the West, practically all over the world, devotees were holding campaign in front of Soviet embassies to free Soviet Hare Krishnas. And Nancy Reagan, when she came to Moscow, to Soviet Union, she talked to Gorbachev's wife. And
did Kirtida talk to Nancy Reagan?
Kirtida was at that function. She was also invited to there. Many Soviet citizens who suffered from regime, they were invited, and Kirtida Mataji was also there. And she talked.
She personally explained her husband's difficulty to Nancy Reagan.
Yeah, and due to that, gradually, our Hare Krishna prisoners, they were released from Amala Bhakta Prabhu, including Amala Bhakta Prabhu. We had something, those years we had like more than 50 prisoners, and some of them died. Some of them, as you said, gave birth to a child in the prison, like Premavati Mataji, and she lost the child, died in the prison. Sachisuta Prabhu also died in the prison. Another devotee also died in the prison. And was stuff, and we were collecting information about all of that, and we were sending this information to human rights organizations, and due to actually push from devotees internationally, the devotees in prison were released.
It is my great joy to inform you that today is Achyuta Priya Prabhu's birthday. And let us enthusiastically welcome all the devotees from Ukraine. Hare Krishna. Now I'd like to ask some of our special guests to speak a few words. Begin with Guru Das Prabhu. Guru Das Prabhu also did preaching behind the Iron Curtain at a certain time. And you know, for some time he was preaching with Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj in Bulgaria.
We owe it all to Prabhupada. He came at great risk to his own self, not knowing anybody, just on the request of his Guru Maharaj, bring this Krishna conscious to the English-speaking world. I was crossing a field, a football field with Prabhupada in Gorakhpur. And I said, Prabhupada, did you ever play sports? Prabhupada said, yes. I was captain of the debating team. Debating team. Prabhupada was a very good arguer. He worked with Gandhiji, Vinod Bhave. He could defeat anybody, but when he met the walking encyclopedia, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he was defeated. Not that he was asking challenging questions, because, as you pointed out, when we ask questions, we sincerely want to know the answer. And his questions were answered. And at that point, Srila Prabhupada surrendered to his Guru and took this Krishna conscious to America, knowing some English. But how would this elderly man convince the wild Americans so proficient in sense gratification? Prabhupada called the Americans old crows because they eat garbage, sense gratification. He called people from India new crows. That means they had to eat twice as much garbage to catch up. This is Prabhupada's humor. This is how he captured us, all attractive. He knew, he said, my God brothers don't have the intelligence, enthusiasm, or will to spread Krishna consciousness. He preached to Vietnam vets. He preached to hippies. He preached to high-class people, everybody. And by his being all attractive, knowing exactly what to say perfectly at the right time, having a heart attack, being sick on the ship, coming here, most people would return. Even Prabhupada wanted to return. He would go to the shipping office and see the times of the ships, and this would get this out of his system. But he didn't go back. And he persevered. And by becoming the instrument, the conduit of Sri Sri Radha Krishna, look how glorious his message has flowered all over the world. I owe so much to Prabhupada. He's changed my life forever. So I thank Prabhupada so much for bringing us all together as a wonderful family. Every place we go, we can chant. The love that flows between devotees cannot be equaled any place else in any group. And so I say, we owe it all to Prabhupada. Thank you very much.